Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Confidence Conversations podcast. And I'm excited, very excited. I say this about all of my guests, right, actually, but today I have no idea where this is going to go. Because we've already been on here now for like 10 minutes and we've already just been laughing at ourselves, about straightening our hair. Anyway, I'm excited today to welcome Tamzin from the Neurodiversity Academy. Hi.
Hi, it's great to be here. I was super excited. I was literally, I do loads of podcast guest appearances, but I was like really excited about coming onto this one because I know we're going to have a great conversation.
Oh my God, we're good. And I do say this about a lot of my guests because once we get going, we could literally talk for days. But actually, you and I probably could actually talk for days. They'd stop taking bets on that because they wouldn't be allowed.
There's no need, is there? Yeah. No need.
So before we do get into our conversation, which we're going to have a conversation obviously about neurodiversity and confidence, and we're going to just see where it takes us, like I do with all of the podcasts. But first of all, for those who don't know who you are, I can't believe there's anybody out there that doesn't know who you are, but tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I am the founder of the Neurodiversity Academy, and I help and support people to understand neurodiversity. So whether that is their own neurodiversity or people with neurodiversity in their world. So I'm talking about ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, all the disses, bipolar, Tourette's. Mental health does come under there as well. Schizophrenia is under that neurodiversity banner as well. And I help workplaces, organisations, HR leaders, business owners to really support and provide strategies and tools and workplace adjustments that their team need to really thrive in the workplace.
Yeah, and I love this. So as you know, I have got a few neurodiverse clients, and clearly when you and I have talked, we haven't named clients or anything. We've kept it all really confidential. We've talked very broadly. And I've also done a little bit of research and a little bit of training, a little bit of, workshopy stuff. But you and I met ages ago, and I don't think you were quite doing this. And then we've reconnected, and now I'm all over this. I'm so interested because I think neurodiversity possibly isn't what people think generally. I think it covers, like you just said, it covers such a wide range, doesn't it? It's such a that term is such a umbrella term for so many different, I don't know how to describe them. Are they conditions? Are they, there's so much around the terminology, isn't there, about what we call them?
Yes. So terminology is actually a great place to talk about because every single neurodivergent individual wants something different, or every conversation that we have is, I don't know how to say this, I don't know what it is. Is it a neurotype? Is it a trait? Is it a condition? Kind of, what is it? How do we talk about it? And there's no right or wrong. As long as we're coming from a place of compassion and understanding and curiosity, it doesn't really matter. And there's so much out there at the moment about how, you can't say this and you can't say that. If we bear in mind, we can't say something that's going to offend the other person. So, of course, you can't turn around to somebody and say, are you autistic? That isn't the right way to handle a conversation. But actually, girl, you never would anyway. So it's about how to just ask and just be curious and just say, actually, I don't know how the right way to broach this is. I don't know the right terminology. What would you like me to use? Because some people want to be identity first. So the ADHD or the autism is so important to them that's the thing that comes first. That's what they want to talk about. Whereas other people be actually, I'm first, my identity is second. And we're never going to know unless we ask the question and say, how do you want me to talk about your neurodiversity? How do you want me to talk about your ADHD, your autism? Because how one person wants it talked about is going to be very different to how somebody else wants it talked about.
Yeah.
So and I kind of want to go on.
No, go on. I went in there. I was like, she stopped talking, quick.
She stopped. I want to almost debunk all of that. I've had leaders say to me, I don't have that conversation because I don't want to get it wrong. I'm just going to put neurodiversity in a box, in a drawer, and not raise it because I'm really worried about being taken to tribunal because I've said something wrong. And tribunals are a thing. They are happening because we are saying things wrong in organisational settings. But as I say, if we come from that place of empathy, compassion, and curiosity, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting, as you were talking there, I was thinking, there's confidence on both sides here, isn't there? Because there's the confidence in the leader, the manager, or the connection, who, maybe it's people you're networking with, or, you're seeing as part of your business or as your role. There's a confidence in how they address it or don't address it, as you've just said. I'm just going to put it in a box, put it in a drawer over here. But then there's also how it impacts confidence for those who are neurodiverse. And I love this idea that actually we can't get it wrong, but so many people will think, if I say something, what if I get it wrong? What if I offend somebody? But I'm guessing that they're, like you just said, is it identity first or is it diagnosis first? What comes first?
Yeah.
But in some ways, does it matter as long as we're talking about it and we're having the conversation?
Absolutely. And I'm all about having that conversation, because I think the more we have the conversation, the more we are aware. There was a tribunal, I think it was last year, it was an NHS trust that was taken to a tribunal because the consultant was autistic, and his line manager said to him, "We have a lot of consultants here who are autistic." And the consultant took the line manager to tribunal, and the consultant won £4,000 in the tribunal because of the way that it was addressed. So it is a thing, and I understand why people are worried because of the threat of tribunals. But actually, if we say things in a way that is just curious, I don't want anybody. So many people come to me and say, I don't know how to say this, or I don't know how to explain that, and just say it just say it, and we'll figure it out. But if you want to have a conversation, say it in a space that's a safe space, and then we can figure it out together, because we need to be having the conversations.
Definitely. Okay, so let's rewind a bit then. Tell us what confidence means to you.
Yes. So confidence to me is being able to show up and be visible and be present in whatever that looks like for each of us, but also to have the confidence to say, I don't agree with something, and that's okay. I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me, but it's having the confidence to say, actually, I would like you to know that this is my opinion on something.
Yeah. And then there's a fear of judgment in that, isn't there, of how somebody might take that. But there's confidence, right? In you're absolutely right in both things. And how often do we step back and we don't do that, or we don't have that conversation, or we don't have that difference of opinion with somebody, and our confidence then eludes us or disappears or goes away.
And I think also there's another element to that is having the confidence to know that if somebody disagrees with me, it doesn't mean I'm wrong.
Yes.
If somebody has a different opinion to me, it's okay. We don't all have to have the same opinion. We don't all have to be on the same page all the time. In some cases we do. But we can have differences of opinion and still get on. And I feel like that's lost a bit at the moment.
I think you're right. I saw something a while ago on social media. We're not even going to go down that road today, but it did say, why are you trying to be liked by everybody because you don't like everybody? And for me, that just demonstrates that difference of opinion, because if we were all the same, it'd all be boring, right?
We do not want a world where we're all the same. We really don't. We want a world where we can all have that opinion now and our own confidence to say, yeah, this is what I like. And I see in neurodiversity with my clients a severe lack of confidence in being able to show up as their true selves. And that's so heartbreaking, because it's great, isn't it, when we can show up with confidence and be ourselves? Yeah. How fabulous is that? Just we were at a networking meeting this morning together, weren't we? Where kind of we were all talking around in groups and just having that confidence to share. This is me. This is my business, in a really confident way. And not everybody has that. You know, some people in networking will have that fear of, first of all, turning up to a networking event, and secondly, being able to talk in a group of people amongst humans and dogs, because dogs are listening, right?
Yes. Did you see Teddy this morning? I think you and I said, or maybe it was me and someone else, but Claire Henley's dog, she's coming on the podcast as well, but Claire Henley's dog, Teddy, when she was doing her pitch, he was just looking up at her like he was taking in every word of her pitch. Bless her, it was so sweet.
Yeah.
But yes,
the way that he adores her and the way that he looks at her is isn't it just beautiful?
Yeah, the confidence he has in her, actually.
Yes.
Sorry, we got distracted by dogs.
I always get distracted by dogs.
You mentioned there about confidence to show up, right? So for a lot of people, that could be easy or difficult, right? It's probably in two brackets, isn't it? It's easy or difficult if we're talking about networking or whatever that might be. So with somebody who's got some kind of neurodiversity, how is that different?
So, hugely. It starts with their confidence is stripped at school. So any confidence they had as a child, they would have been told. You know, I use myself as the case study here. At school, I was always told that I was stupid, that I didn't have a brain, or maybe I did have a brain. Maybe she does have a brain, she doesn't know how to apply it. That I was disruptive, that I would never amount to anything. All these negative judgments and words from authority figures coming my way. And for somebody who is, you know, I've got quite a strong personality. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've got quite a strong personality.
Pass me by.
But no. But for somebody who doesn't have a strong personality and who is, maybe very sensitive or introverted or just takes on everything that people say, it's really hard when people that should be bigging us up and telling us how amazing we are stripping us down. And so what happens is, over years and years and years, teachers, I've heard stories of family, of friends, of bullies, just constantly stripping, and everything somebody says or does, having people laughing, judging, saying negative things to them. And so what that does is that just strips everything away. And you've got the external factors, but you also got the internal factors. So if you have somebody who is autistic, for example, who is really struggling to make eye contact, and if anybody knows anything about autism, that eye contact feels like, if you ever tried writing with your wrong hand, so I'm right-handed, so try writing with your left hand. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, it's really distracting away from what you're trying to do. That's what it's like for an autistic person to be making eye contact. All they're thinking about is, I've got to make eye contact, I've got to make eye contact, I've got to look the other person in the eye. They're not thinking about anything else because it's just on that. And then to be told that you're rude, that you're unsociable, all of these negative things, it's horrible. And all it does is create self-doubt, lack of confidence, low self-esteem, low self-belief. And once you've been told time and time and time again you're not good enough because of all these things, that's all you hear. And so confidence is at a real low, because 99.99% of neurodivergent people that I come across, come into my world, they are harder on themselves than anybody is to them, and that's tough. That is really tough. So it is. I suppose in a that's a long-winded way of saying it's stripped to low because of everything that's happened to neuro people in the past.
Is it fair to say that it's for someone who am I okay to use the word neurotypical in the context of the conversation?
Yes.
Because I think it'll give the listeners kind of a way of us determining between the different types of people, if you like, that we're talking about. So in a neurotypical world, some of the things that you've said around, we're hard on ourselves, we go for the negative first, the self-doubt piece. A neurotypical person has ways they deal with that. I'm making a wild assumption here that if you're neurodiverse, those things that feel like they're amplified, like they're probably made much, much bigger than they would be if you were neurotypical. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And for a number of reasons. And from what I see, the main one being, you take away rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is a condition of ADHD and also quite a lot of other neurodiversities, but take away kind of those labelled conditions, it's a compounding effect, isn't it? Because, if we hear once, you're not good enough, twice, you're not good enough. And that could be in many forms, from all of those examples that I shared at school. If today someone says something to me, I can remember we were talking about careers, and then we went around the table, like they do, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I said I wanted to be the first female racing driver. And I got laughed at. She in front of the whole class said, well, you're never going to do that. You need to find something else. And I think probably all you're capable of doing is flipping burgers at McDonald's.
Wow.
I was like, okay. So, of course, that comment, whenever I want and think, could I do something, I'm taken back to that moment in school but I'm not good enough to do that. And that's with me when I've got kind of, I have got, not all the time, because none of us are perfect, right? Apart from maybe you, girl. Maybe you're perfect.
Unlikely. I mean, I came home to straighten my hair, let's be honest, from the wet networking that we did.
So funny. So it's compounded, and it's compounded because of so many things that, as we navigate, as a neurodivergent individual navigates through their day, there's so many things that we do. I constantly send stuff with spelling mistakes on. I don't mean to, but I check it. Oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing. Shall I share?
Yeah, definitely share. Yeah. If you're happy to, let's share. Yes.
Yeah. So I was doing an application for, actually it was an application. I don't know why I'm whispering.
It was an application.
It was an application on behalf of my son. So it's an application on behalf of my son.
That's why you're whispering, because you don't want the people to hear. Yeah.
No, I don't want them to know that I did it on behalf of him. And so it was the thing where you have to put the email address in, then you have to give some information, you have to upload the CV in, and all of that jazz. And I typed in the email address. I misspelled the email address. So I did the application with the email address spelled wrong, submitted it, and it's all to finally submit your application. You need to check your email and we'll send you a code. So I'm sitting there thinking, no code's coming through. I realised I spelt the email address wrong. This is something really important, but this is how I navigate my days, where I make mistakes, I make spelling mistakes, I drop things. If you ever eat dinner with me, 9 times out of 10 I'm going to drop something down my top, because I think it's probably it's a diss, isn't it? So whether it's dyslexia, it could be part of dyslexia, it could be part of ADHD, but so I might just make down my top.
So I need to share now then. I need to share that. So we were at another networking, because this is where we see each other. We were at another networking event. She knows what I'm going to say now. And we were on what we labelled the naughty table, weren't we, in the middle of there. And Tamzin, you literally said, I'm going to get something down my top. So you then knocked coffee over the table that wasn't your coffee, that was someone else's, which just amused me, because the person then came back to the table and was like, I'm sure my coffee wasn't like that when I left it. And you were like, no, but it's fine. And then you literally dropped something down you. But you weren't, or you didn't seem to be embarrassed by that. I'm going to use the word styled it out, and that's a little bit flippant, and I don't mean it to be like that. Whereas I probably, and maybe you were feeling like this inside, or maybe you weren't. I would have been mortified, and that would have been all I could have thought about for the red, that I'd got something down my top. Mm-hmm. But you didn't appear to be like that.
No, and I think part of this comes with my awareness of I'm going to get things down my top. I think I'm dyspraxic, so I'm diagnosed dyslexic, self-diagnosed ADHD. I think I'm dyspraxic as well. So I break things, I drop things, I can't spell. I don't know my lefts and my rights. I've got no sense of direction. I forget things quite often. And yeah, I get things down my top. And I think I spent so many years being embarrassed by these things, and so many years thinking I'm not good enough because I've dropped something down my top. And yes, of course it's embarrassing, because you can be in a work context or a professional context. We're at a networking meeting with professionals, and I'm there, and I do make sure that I do wear stuff that maybe it doesn't notice so much. But I can go out with my 14-year-old son, and I've got stuff down me, and he's perfectly clean. But it's me. I can't help it. I don't do it intentionally. I have backups. I always have a spare top or a change of clothes or something with me, because if I'm going into a business meeting, I can't have stuff down my top. But and I'm really clumsy. But I think all of those things are me. They are who I am.
Yeah.
But they don't mean that I can't do my job. Just because I knock things over doesn't mean I don't know how to talk about neurodiversity. Doesn't mean I'm not don't have to be a neurodiversity champion. Doesn't mean I'm not, in certain things I can do absolutely what is needed, but I would never be a waitress.
Oh, neither would I. But I'm just going to claw back my styled it out, because actually as I then thought about that, and you carried on, you went on to sort of explain kind of what happens in those situations. Part of me just thought, but that's you. And then you went on to say that's you. And also it's having that confidence, isn't it? To go, well, do you know what? This is just me, and I'm accepting of who I am. Yeah. You also talked about one thing I do want to pick up on is this piece where you said, I'm diagnosed, correct me if I'm wrong, autism, ASD, yes, is that correct? No, you tell me if you're happy to your diagnosis. Yeah, I knew I'd get that wrong.
No, it's fine. So I'm diagnosed ADHD. No, I'm not.
Okay. Wrong. Brilliant. Sorry, I've confused the whole situation there. Rewind.
Who am I? Yeah. So I'm diagnosed dyslexic. So okay. I was diagnosed at school. So I had that whole, Tamzin isn't good enough. She's not brainy enough. She's not smart enough. She can't do anything. So at 15, my mum said, okay, you are absolutely, there's something not right. You're not stupid. I know you're not stupid. So she took me to an educational psychologist, and they said, really high IQ, really high dyslexia. And that's quite common with dyslexic is that high IQ that almost masks the dyslexia. Yeah. So, and I see that in ADHD as well. In fact, all neurodiversities, where that masking is because of this high IQ that we know how to kind of muddle through. So, diagnosed dyslexic, self-diagnosed ADHD, but I am 100% sure I also have dyspraxia in there as well, because my coordination is just. My son laughs at me because there was a time when we went to play cricket at the field. So I went to play cricket, and I'm bowling. So I'm bowling, and the ball goes behind me rather than in front of me.
You know what I'm thinking as well? Some of these examples that you're saying, some of the examples you've given, I'm clumsy, the ball goes behind me. I could never be a waitress. I think there'll be a lot of people that will sit and listen to this and relate to that, because I was like, oh, I could never be a waitress and I can't throw a ball. So I heard the term the other day, neuro-curious. I can't even say it, let alone hear it. And it was described as where someone is not diagnosed, but they actually wonder whether they've got some kind of neurodiversity. What could they do in that situation if somebody's listening to this and going, oh God, that might be me?
Yeah, and when people come to my neurodiversity awareness training, every single time I get oh my gosh, you've opened my eyes. Oh my gosh, maybe. And the whole to be diagnosed to not be diagnosed thing is a big question. And obviously in the UK at the moment, we have these huge wait times for diagnosis. And I have some clients who absolutely have to have a diagnosis. I've got some clients that have gone down the diagnosis route and really regret it. And I've got some people who just don't want to have a diagnosis. And that's one of the reasons why I've stuck at a self-diagnosed ADHD, because I don't want the medication. I don't need the medication. So I've got really, for me, I don't need it to prove to anybody. Some people want to have a diagnosis to prove it to other people or to themselves. I don't need that. So actually so if we look at things like access to work or support at work for neurodiversity, so workplace adjustments, you don't have to have a diagnosis. So under the Equality Act, let me go back. A definition of a disability is something that impacts somebody for 12 months or more. And under the Equality Act, it doesn't have to be diagnosed. So it can just be something that is impacting life. So take maybe not spelling, because that's a bit of a grey area, but ADHD, for example, with everything that happens with ADHD and all of those factors that people struggle with, that is a struggle. For more than 12 months, that is a struggle. So actually it is a form of a disability. And under the Equality Act, an employer has to provide adjustments and support under the Equality Act. So my long-winded way of saying, I think it's really important that we all are curious. If there's something that is just we find really difficult, whether it's time management, whether it's concentration, whether it's getting started on something, whether it's having a million things going on in our head, whether it's that real hyper focus, whatever it is, if we think, oh, Flossie doesn't have this, why does Flossie not have this and I do? I wish I was more like Flossie. And if you want to be a bit curious about, is this something that's going on in my brain that just means that I might be just a bit different to Flossie, and that's okay. I think neuro-curious I love it. I love the terminology. And I think if we can all be a bit more curious with this, then the world's going to be a better place, because we're going to be curious, we're going to understand it a bit more, we're going to understand ourselves, and we're going to understand each other. So yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, and I really like that term, because I think, and one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was around, has it become a bit trendy? And by that, I think I probably, I've seen posts, and as I'm sure everybody has, where people are saying they've got a diagnosis, or they think they are, or it's a late diagnosis. I say late, people are being diagnosed in their 40s, but it's obviously later than you'd probably want it to be, because you probably might have put things in place. And then there are also the posts that go, oh, everybody's coming out as ADHD, maybe I should too. I'm sure we've all seen those. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say that.
No.
So I've also seen businesses trying to niche as well, and saying, oh, I'm only going to work with ADHD people, or I've got a diagnosis. And I've seen it in my clients. I've heard this with some coaches. I've seen it in my clients. Now, I'm not saying, right, that those coaches can't help those clients, but I think this neuro-curious thing, we need to be really careful here, because just because my symptoms sound the same as yours doesn't mean that I've got the same as you. Is that fair? What are your thoughts on that?
No, it's 100%. And I have a real concern, and we've had this conversation. I know, Kel, we're going to have conversations like this again in the future, because one lived experience does not make you an expert. And I see a lot out there of, I've got one lived experience of ADHD and I'm going to call myself an ADHD coach, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to get a £19 coaching qualification
Udemy.
and I'm done. I'm set.
Yeah.
And that really concerns me, because the people that I work with, whether they're diagnosed or undiagnosed, there's a lot of mental health concerns around there. There's a lot of suicidal conversations, and I know that through the training that I've gone through, as I know you are, I'm totally equipped and I know exactly what to do in those situations. And people with one lived experience and one Udemy course isn't going to know. And so I think there's a real concern around these individuals who are suffering silently, and who are, a lot of them are really suffering.
Yeah.
It's some people want to have a label, some people want to have a diagnosis.
I get that, right? I do get that.
Yeah, I absolutely get it. And there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong in any of it. And I think because we're now having more of an awareness, we're now saying, do you know, actually, if we look back to, I can't remember the date, but at some point in our history, postnatal depression, women were sectioned for it.
Yeah.
So,
menopause as well. Women were seen as hysterical, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah. And autism, ADHD again, with that neurological, something's different in our brains, people were sectioned because of it. And so we've evolved so much. We know more. It's such a new field. We're doing research all the time. New things are coming out. And is it that it's more trendy? Is it that we're talking about it more so people think, oh my gosh,
that could be me.
That's me. Yeah. I'm not broken. I'm not stupid. I'm not wrong. This is just me.
Yeah.
Or is it that actually, and might be quite controversial, and I do totally appreciate that in the field of work that I'm in, I do work a lot with divergent individuals. But is it that actually there's no neurotypical? There's no normal, that we all are a little bit, neurodiverse, a little bit, quirky, a little bit different, but that's really okay. And it just doesn't matter. And we're all just amazing because we're all different.
Yeah, and you know what, because that's like saying what's normal, isn't it? What's normal in life? What's a normal upbringing? What's a normal? And so maybe we are all a little bit neurodiverse. Maybe we all have those little quirks and those little things that make us actually who we are. I like that. I like that idea that there is. I went on some training a while ago. It was a coach's training for coaching neurodiverse clients, and one of the, actually maybe it wasn't, anyway, it matters not, but I saw a great video that the trainer played, and normally I'm like, oh god, what is this going to be? But it was absolutely brilliant because it was set up from a perspective of a neurodiverse individual, and it was a business, and it started by saying, imagine if you were working in a business where there were only neurodiverse people, and a neurotypical person came in, and how different that perspective was that you suddenly got on that, as I'm going to use the word neurotypical again, as a neurotypical person. Suddenly I was like, oh wow, I hadn't thought about it in that way. But what actually if that was the case? And then how isolated that neurotypical person was is clearly how neurodiverse people feel. I don't think that's controversial at all, because and that goes back to what we were just saying earlier about, being clumsy. People will be listening to this going, oh yeah, that's me. So then be a bit neuro-curious, then go and find out a bit more, do proper research. we'll put the link to your training courses in the show notes as well. So if people want to come along, because I know you're doing a mix, aren't you, of online and in-person ones as well. Even if that's to just do a bit of education, because that's what I did. I wanted to learn a little bit more so that I could better support my client. I could figure out what could I say or what couldn't I say, what was okay. And I think what I learned was that actually in the beginning, I treat everybody the same. So, if you come to work with me, we'll have a proper conversation about how do we like to work together? Well, if you're neurodiverse, there's your opportunity to say, well, girl, I really need this from you. So one of my neurodiverse clients, she does loads of prep up front. She tells me what she wants from the session and what might help her, if it's a worksheet or something visual or a reference, or if she wants to do an activity. Whereas actually some of my more neurotypical people just rock up to sessions. And then I might have someone on the other extreme of the neurodiverse who rocks up and goes, I don't really know what I want to talk about today. And we flip from conversation to conversation. And actually you and I, when we met for coffee a while ago, we ended up playing Ludo over our coffee, catch up as well. And we flitted from conversation to conversation, didn't we? Whereas I wouldn't probably play. I don't think I've ever played Ludo when I've met coffee before. It's met for coffee before. It's great. No, well,
have you ever played anything? Have you ever played
anything?
Like done anything like that?
Not like that, no. No.
I'm just different, right?
Yeah, but it was great because I came away from that feeling really energized because it felt like fun to me. But I get for you, it was probably a bit of a distraction. It was something exciting. It wasn't then just a boring sit down and have a chat kind of thing.
I don't think it would ever be a boring chat between you and
but
me.
You know what? So there you go, everyone. You go for coffee for Tamzin, you don't play Ludo, it might be boring. No, it's not going to be boring.
So funny. All those people that go listen thinking, well, hang on a second. I don't have Ludo in my bag.
Yeah. Oh no, it was in didn't bring Ludo along. It was in the cafe. I should have said that, shouldn't I? Yeah, Tamzin doesn't rock up with like a trailer full of games or anything like that when she comes to meet you.
Although I could do, right? That'd be fun.
Yeah, you could. Pick your game. Yeah. Sorry, I've digressed massively there. But I think the point here is if you feel you're going to say something wrong or you don't know enough or you want to be neuro-curious, go and find out, but find out in the right places. I think that's what we're saying, isn't it? Learn, educate yourself, absolutely. Learn more. Yeah.
And just circling back to a question that you asked me that I didn't answer was around having a workforce full of kind of ADHD or neurodivergent. And some companies have said we are only hiring neurodivergent individuals. Now, in fact, one company that I know has a policy whereas if a neurodivergent individual applies for a promotion internally, as long as the person on paper ticks the education boxes and all the role requirements, they will automatically get put forward to interview.
Right.
Now, in fact, I've got some neurodivergent clients who were selected for interview through that process who weren't happy because they don't want to be singled out, and neurodivergent individuals don't want that spotlight on them. They don't want to be treated differently. This is about being inclusive. And I think we have to be really careful about getting that balance between being neuro-inclusive but being inclusive for everybody. And if we say we're only hiring neurodivergent individuals, there's going to be some absolutely phenomenal neurotypical that we're excluding. And it's about having a really diverse team that brings everything, a whole range of diversity, not just about saying we need a team full of, because, the autistic brain blows my mind. It's absolutely phenomenal with it, the retention, what they remember, memory. Just I'm blown. For somebody who's dyslexic to have really poor short-term memory, an autistic brain, I'm just in awe of. But you would in a team, you don't need a full team of that phenomenal memory and attention to detail. You also need that blend of lack of detail, so we can just get things going and get things started.
Done.
So we need that hybrid. We need that hybrid because everyone's got amazing talents and amazing attributes that they can bring to a team. And when the team just showcases all of that amazingness, that's when a team is great. And so I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, and I'm also really curious about what was the purpose behind that business saying they wanted just neurodiverse people in their team? Was that where my mind went to? Was that a tick box exercise, or was that from a perspective of what they think that neurodiverse people can bring to a team?
So I think, and I might be, in fact, no, let me just Google it before I say, because I don't want... I think the company that I think it is, it might not be, and if I say it, your podcast might be blacklisted.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that where my first thought went was, so I guess what I'm likening it to there is, we want more women on boards, right? So therefore we're just going to promote women, and actually women might be the right person for the job, but they might not be. There'll be some amazing men out there that might be, and vice versa. So I guess we need to be careful that we're not heading down the road of we're employing neurodiverse people because actually we want to tick a box, because then that doesn't feel right either.
Isn't that 100%? And I think there's some really great organizations out there who get the balance right. So I thought it was Tesla who had said that they only are employing neurodivergent staff. I can't find it on Google. But I might be wrong, so I'm going to caveat that with I might be wrong. Totally wrong. But it was a big organization like that. And you have got companies such as Morgan Stanley do a lot. Obviously, Virgin does a lot with neurodiversity, and Google do some great stuff with neurodiversity. They have neurodiversity as a bit of a golden thread that is weaved through everything they do, which is absolutely right. If you say exactly as you're saying actually, and I'm not saying Tesla's wrong here if it is Tesla, but actually, if we say we're only going to hire neurodivergent individuals, to me that does sound like we're just trying to tick a box.
Yeah, and we're only going to hire women or men. It sounds the same to me. Yeah, doesn't it?
And actually, that isn't how you're going to get that balance, because you need different perspectives.
Absolutely. And actually Richard Branson's well-known dyslexic, isn't he? I think
he is.
So, I mean, there's the story. There's one final thing before we wrap up I want to come back to, and that's this idea of masking. So I think I first came across this idea of masking. Somebody I worked with a long time ago had a she's probably late 20s, early 30s of dyslexia. And it was when I was in training, and I remember her saying, I think she said out loud to me, I don't know how I've got to this age, and I haven't been found out that I've got this. And I said, oh yeah, that is actually quite interesting. Why was this not picked up at school? And she said, and whoever had done her diagnosis at the time had said, it's because you mask it. You learn, what's the word? You learn ways to work around it. You find workarounds, and you find ways to avoid it maybe as well. Is that what you see with masking in your work?
Yeah. So it is literally just, I'm going to put on a mask and I'm going to show up as someone else. So when I first left school and went into the workplace, I showed up as the high IQ Tamzin, not the dyslexic Tamzin. So I masked and I pretended that it wasn't an issue. And what I see, especially in late diagnosed cases, or people that have been through so much because of their diagnosis, they try and hide it. And they try and be somebody they're not, and they try and show up as neurotypical when they are neurodivergent, and that's exhausting. It doesn't do their self-esteem, their confidence, doesn't do them any good. But masking is such a thing, and there's some cases that it's difficult, because in coaching, I had one amazing client, and she was phenomenal, but her stimming, so kind of her movement, she had tics, her stimming, her up and down, her hyperactivity was, if she didn't mask, it was intense, and it could be quite distracting.
Right.
And so we worked on getting that balance right, where maybe she couldn't totally unmask, because actually if she totally unmasked, her behaviours would be in that workplace context and context. I don't think she's working there anymore, but that workplace that she was in, she couldn't have been constantly kind of up and down and moving and doing everything that she felt, just like I'm doing now, because she had people around her that were trying to concentrate.
Right.
So there was an element of, how do we give her the space that she needs to do the stimming and the hyperactivity and kind of the movement, but also to be able to do her job. And that was a bit of a hybrid between, kind of masking in a way. We didn't call it masking, we called it something else in the end. But also then her being able to move regularly, walk away from her desk and go and have that bit of outlet. And what does that look like? And I think in the end it was something like they had a ping pong table in their breakout room, and every half an hour she would go and just find somebody to play ping pong with, just for 5 minutes. Great. And that just let out that energy. But we had to obviously get that arranged through HR and her manager and everything, because the amount of time that she was away from her desk. But it's things like that where sometimes actually masking might have a place, because as much as we would love to be able to just do everything, and
because I'm now sat here thinking, whether that's right or whether that's wrong. Because also, do you know what, just I am going to wrap up in a minute, but also just what went through my mind when you talked about, we had to get that through HR because she was away from her desk. Actually, we have smokers who go out for breaks that would be away for, maybe not so much now with the hybrid working, yet we don't necessarily get that authorised. It's really interesting, isn't it, when you start to just unpick it and think about where being neurodiverse, again, to use that term widely, we maybe have to make some special allowances for, but then there are some neurotypical behaviours that we just think, that's the norm. There we go again with that. See, look, you've made me really think about my language, haven't you? Which is really interesting. So look, we have literally scratched the absolute tip of the surface here. I think you'll have to come back, and we'll have to just, maybe focus on maybe ADHD, maybe autism, or maybe dyslexia, or something, so that we can get really deep into having a conversation. But if somebody wants to know a little bit more about you and how you might be helping, how you might be able to tell them, particularly if they're neuro-curious, or indeed if they do or don't have if they're self-diagnosed or they have a diagnosis, where can they find you?
So I'm Tamzin Hall on LinkedIn. So we'll pop I'll send you the link, girl. So you've got that. So I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn, and I share weekly newsletters on there as well, which is always something that's happened during the week, or something that I've been asked a question of. I always have my Dear Tamzin each week as well.
Which is great.
Somebody has a burning question, it's totally anonymous. So if anyone has a question around neurodiversity and think, I'd love to know the answer to that, just send me a private message. It's totally anonymous. I never put names on, and I answer the question as in a Dear Tamzin style.
Yes, brilliant.
And my website is the neurodiversityacademy.com,
which we'll put in the show notes. Tamzin, thank you. I love spending time with you. I love our conversations, because I feel like sometimes we go off on a random tangent, but we always come back and we always end up, and you always make me think. So thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You are so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'll come back on soon, definitely.
My pleasure. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode, and we will see you next time on the Confidence Conversations podcast.
Bye.